Have you ever stopped to wonder why your eyes are the color they are? Maybe it's something you've always accepted as just a genetic detail, nothing more than biology. But to Carl Jung, nothing about your body is truly random. He believed that even your eye color could hold symbolic meaning, subtle clues about your inner world, your temperament, and even the archetype you silently carry through life. Your eyes, the way they reflect light, the depth of their hue, they're more than physical. They may act as a mirror to your unconscious mind. Jung's theories on archetypes and the collective unconscious open a new possibility, that the color of your eyes is tied to a spiritual pattern, a quiet echo of who you truly are and why you were born the way you are. In this video, we'll explore how each eye color, blue, green, hazel, brown, may carry its own psychological signature, a pattern of energy, emotion, and soul intention. But before we dive in, if you resonate with the search for deeper meaning, subscribe to our channel. This space is for those who seek more than surface-level answers, for those who want to understand themselves at the soul level. So look into your own eyes for a moment, because what you're about to learn might not only change how you see yourself, but what your eyes have been trying to tell you all along. We live in a world that teaches us to look outward before we look inward. From the time we're young, we're trained to focus on appearances, how things look, how people behave, how to fit in. But rarely do we stop to ask, what is looking through us? What is the quality behind our gaze? And perhaps more mysteriously, what does that gaze say about who we are? Carl Jung often reminded us that the surface is never just surface. The outer world, and even the body we live in, is shaped in deep and sometimes invisible ways by what he called the unconscious. And within that unconscious lies a hidden architecture of images, stories, and instincts, what he famously named archetypes. These archetypes are not just ideas, they're psychic blueprints, primordial energies that influence how we love, how we fear, how we grow, and how we sabotage ourselves. They show up in dreams, in myths, in recurring life patterns. But Jung also believed they could be projected into the body itself, especially in subtle features like posture, expressions, and yes, even the eyes. If the body is a kind of canvas for the unconscious to express itself, then the eyes are one of its most profound works of art. The eyes as archetypal symbol. Why do we instinctively say, the eyes are the windows to the soul? Why can a single look make us feel exposed or seen without a word? And why do we sense so much in someone's gaze even before we know their name? Jung would say, because we're picking up something ancient, something beneath the words, something that doesn't belong to one lifetime, but to all of human experience. In Jungian psychology, the symbol is the most powerful language of the unconscious. It's not literal, but it's never meaningless. A symbol carries layers. It can't be fully explained. It has to be felt, sensed, lived. And the eyes are one of the most charged symbols across every culture on Earth. In mythology, the eyes are often linked to truth, power, danger, seduction, divinity. The all-seeing eye, the evil eye, the third eye, the eye of Horus. In every tradition, eyes are portals, between worlds, between people, between the conscious and unconscious. So what if your specific eyes, their color, intensity, depth, carry not just biological data, but symbolic clues about your inner architecture? This isn't about fortune-telling. It's not about saying all people with green eyes are this and all people with brown eyes are that. Instead, it's about asking a different kind of question. What psychological pattern might be expressed through the symbolic tone of your eyes? Carl Jung believed in the fundamental unity of body and psyche. He saw the body not as a shell, but as a living expression of the soul's landscape. In his view, the way we move, speak, breathe, and even get sick is often shaped by unconscious material. It's why Jung studied dreams, slips of the tongue, physical symptoms, even astrology. Not to define people, but to explore how symbolic systems reflect inner dynamics. He would likely argue that no aspect of your appearance is purely accidental, especially when it resonates across generations, families, or lineages. So when we ask, "Why do I have these eyes?" we're really asking, what am I here to see, and what do my eyes reveal about what I carry inside me? In this light, the color of your eyes becomes an invitation to explore what energy might be flowing through you. Not because someone assigned it to you, but because your soul may have chosen it as part of your psychological language. The symbolic meaning of color. Before we ever look at eye color as a category, we need to understand that color itself is symbolic. Across cultures, colors evoke emotional and psychological associations: blue, clarity, coolness, depth, longing, spirituality; brown, earth, stability, nurturing, warmth; green, growth, change, vitality, transformation; gray, mystery, neutrality, balance, introspection; hazel, complexity, multiplicity, duality; black or very dark eyes, depth, intensity, shadow, power. These aren't definitions, they're vibrations. Each color resonates with certain archetypal fields, just like seasons do, or elements or moon phases. So if your eye color aligns with a certain symbolic tone, it may mean that you're carrying that energetic imprint in your psyche. Not as a rigid label, but as a starting point, a symbolic lens through which to better understand your patterns. Jung's work constantly emphasized this. We are not one thing. We are multiplicities, but we each have a few dominant themes, archetypes, that shape our personality, our pain, our gifts, and those themes often emerge in how we express ourselves, how others respond to us, and yes, even how we look. So let's return to the mirror. Next time you look into your eyes, don't ask just, "Do they look tired today?" Ask, what is trying to speak through them? Do they feel piercing, soft, curious, guarded? Do they feel like they're holding something back or revealing something deep? That sensation, that inner quality, may be more important than the color itself. Because even within blue eyes, there are endless variations. Even within brown eyes, some are rich and warm, others deep and commanding. Your experience of your own gaze, how it feels, is what matters most. This is how Jung would have approached it. He didn't believe in stereotypes. He believed in symbols and in the unique dance between your conscious life and the archetypal forces working beneath it. In the next part of this journey, we'll begin to explore how different eye colors may correlate with archetypal energies, not as rules, but as reflections of the inner stories you may be living, sometimes without even realizing it. What does it mean to carry the gaze of the seeker? What's hidden in the eyes of the alchemist? How does the guardian look at the world? What makes some eyes feel magnetic and others feel invisible? These are the questions we'll begin to unravel, not to reduce you, but to reveal the unseen patterns within you. Because in the end, your eyes aren't just how you look out into the world. They're also how the world begins to understand who you are. Now that we've opened the door to the symbolic world of the eyes, it's time to begin the descent into the meaning each eye color may carry. not just physically, but psychologically, spiritually, and energetically. These are not fixed labels. You are not being told who you are. Instead, you're being invited to recognize, to see something that perhaps you've always sensed, but never quite named. Let's begin. Blue eyes, the seeker, the mystic, the inward gaze. There is something haunting about blue eyes. Whether piercing like ice or soft like the sky, they hold a kind of distance, a space, a question. They seem to look through the world rather than directly at it, like someone scanning for something just beyond the horizon. Symbolically, blue eyes resonate with the archetype of the seeker. Jung described this pattern as the part of us that longs for the invisible, that refuses to be satisfied with surface answers. The seeker walks between worlds, one foot in reality, the other in mystery. People with blue eyes may carry within them an innate orientation toward introspection, longing, and meaning. From a young age, they might have asked questions others avoided. Why am I here? Why do people lie? Why does it all feel so heavy sometimes? This longing can make them emotionally deep, even if externally they appear cool or calm. Many blue-eyed individuals possess a kind of emotional radar, an ability to detect subtle changes in energy, mood, or tone in others. But rather than reacting quickly, they often pull inward to process. They live not on the surface, but in the underlayers of thought, feeling, perception. Jung might say this correlates with the dominance of the intuitive or feeling function, a person who perceives meaning in symbols, music, silence, and solitude. But every archetype has a shadow. The seeker can become lost in searching, never feeling satisfied, always looking for the next answer. They may struggle to feel present because their mind is so often in the past, the future, or some idealized realm. They may also struggle with emotional loneliness, feeling like others don't see them, or worse, don't want to. Their depth can become a burden when the world around them demands small talk and shallow goals. But when the blue-eyed soul learns to trust their inner world without needing external validation, they become luminous. They stop looking for a place to belong and begin creating one. Their gaze no longer pleads to be understood. It becomes an invitation for others to go deeper too. Blue eyes are not just about light, they are about clarity. And when this clarity is turned inward, the seeker becomes the mystic, a soul who doesn't just look for meaning, but becomes meaning. Brown eyes, the guardian, the rooted soul, the earth energy. Brown eyes are often overlooked. Because they are common in many parts of the world, they're rarely seen as special. But symbolically, brown eyes are some of the most powerful because they embody the energy of the earth itself. In Jungian terms, they resonate with the archetype of the guardian or protector. This is the energy of the stable, grounded force, the one who stays when others run, the one who listens before they speak, the one who builds, protects, and nurtures, quietly, steadily, loyally. People with brown eyes often radiate presence. There's something solid in them, something you can lean on. They are often the emotional rock in their families or relationships, even when they don't want to be. Others naturally come to them for comfort, for advice, for help, and they give without asking much in return. This reflects a deeply ingrained mother archetype, regardless of gender, not in the literal sense of raising children, but in the psychic function of holding emotional space. Brown-eyed individuals may absorb the moods and needs of those around them almost unconsciously, learning early on how to soothe, support, and survive. But the guardian carries a heavy burden. Their steadiness often comes at a cost. They may suppress their own needs to maintain peace. They may become emotionally invisible in their own stories, so used to giving that they forget how to receive. They may stay in relationships or jobs long past their expiration date simply because they feel responsible. Jung warned about this. The danger of merging too completely with a role, even a noble one. For brown-eyed souls, the journey is to reclaim their inner fire, to realize that being strong doesn't mean being silent, that loyalty should not mean self-abandonment, that they can still be a source of grounding without losing their voice. When they do this, they become more than protectors. They become healers, not because they absorb pain, but because they transmute it into wisdom. Brown eyes do not shout. They don't need to. Their power is not in their flash, it's in their depth. They are not light like fire. They are deep like soil, and from that soil entire forests grow. Green eyes, the alchemist, the bridge between worlds. Green eyes are rare, and they feel that way. There's something magnetic, almost hypnotic about them. People often describe green eyes as mysterious, intense, or wild. But that mystery is not random. It reflects a unique psychological blend. Symbolically, green is the color of growth, balance, and transformation. It lives between blue, cool, emotional, introspective, and yellow, warm, fiery, assertive. So too do green-eyed individuals often live between worlds. In Jungian language, green eyes resonate with the archetype of the alchemist, the one who transforms pain into power, shadow into light, instinct into insight. These are not people who live life passively. They feel things strongly. Their emotions, desires, intuitions, they all come with a charge. But unlike the pure warrior or the pure mystic, the alchemist holds both fire and water. They are paradox embodied. Green-eyed souls often move through cycles of death and rebirth in their lives. They may undergo intense inner transformations, moments where everything they thought they were crumbles, only to reassemble into something stronger, truer, and more integrated. This is not an easy path. The alchemist must face the shadow again and again, sometimes in the form of depression, anxiety, identity crisis, heartbreak. But each time they come out the other side, they carry a deeper truth. They may be drawn to healing, art, psychology, spirituality, anything that allows them to bridge opposites and create wholeness. But the shadow of this archetype is instability. They may become addicted to transformation, always stirring things up, afraid of stillness. They may provoke or push others emotionally without realizing it, trying to awaken something in them. They may suffer from emotional intensity they can't always control. Their journey is to realize that alchemy doesn't require chaos, that peace can be as powerful as passion. That integration is not about killing off parts of yourself, but weaving them together. When green-eyed individuals walk this path consciously, they become magnetic, not for attention, but for authenticity. They are rare not because of how they look, but because of what they carry, the ability to hold light and shadow in the same breath. In the previous part of our journey, we explored the archetypes behind the three most commonly recognized eye colors: blue, brown, and green. Each, in its own way, reveals a distinct psychological tone, a resonance with certain patterns of energy, emotion, and inner purpose. But not all eyes fall neatly into categories. Some shimmer between shades, some hide their story beneath layers, some seem to hold a darkness so deep it feels like staring into the unknown itself. And Jung would say, That unknown matters. In fact, it's in the unknown that transformation becomes possible. Now we turn to those eye colors that often get less attention, but may carry some of the richest symbolic material: hazel, gray, and black. Hazel eyes are hard to define. Some days they look brown, other days green. Some shift in the light. Some seem to carry flecks of gold, amber, or gray. But this very mutability is what makes hazel eyes so fascinating from a symbolic perspective. In Jungian terms, hazel eyes resonate with the shapeshifter archetype, a deeply complex energy that's capable of adaptation, reinvention, and paradox. These individuals are often hard to pin down. They may seem emotionally grounded one moment and abstract the next. Logical in one context, wildly intuitive in another. This isn't because they're unstable, it's because they carry multiple inner functions that are all equally alive. Jung wrote about the persona, the social mask we wear in order to function in the world. He emphasized that the danger wasn't having a persona, it was becoming it. The hazel-eyed individual, consciously or unconsciously, tends to see through personas, both their own and others. They're attuned to masks, and they're often drawn to taking them off. That's why so many people feel safe around hazel-eyed souls. There's something disarming about their gaze, something that seems to say, "You don't have to pretend with me." And yet, paradoxically, hazel-eyed individuals may struggle deeply with their own identity. Because they are so many things to so many people, they sometimes lose sight of who they are without the mirror of others. They may become emotional chameleons, changing tones and colors to survive or to please. The shapeshifter also has a dark side: manipulation, confusion, inconsistency. If they fear rejection, they may become too fluid, too invisible, or they may wear their masks so well that even they forget they're wearing one. But when this archetype is integrated, when the hazel-eyed soul learns to accept all the parts of themselves, they become bridges between worlds. They are capable of understanding vastly different perspectives, helping others break free from rigid roles, and bringing creative solutions where others see only chaos. They don't just live. Between identities, they embody synthesis, not as a performance but as a gift. Hazel eyes are not about choosing one truth. They are about holding many truths at once and still choosing love, presence, and growth. Grey eyes, the observer, the sage in the shadow, the watcher of patterns. Grey eyes are perhaps the rarest of all, not just in number, but in presence. When you meet someone with truly grey eyes, there's often a pause, a sense of being studied, seen. Grey as a color is neutral. It is neither black nor white. It contains opposites, holds tension, and doesn't demand attention. It absorbs rather than reflects. It waits, it calculates, it contemplates. In Jungian psychology, grey eyes resonate with the archetype of the observer, or even the hermit or inner sage. These are individuals who may feel like they've been watching the world from the edges for as long as they can. Remember, they don't push themselves into the spotlight. They don't react immediately. Instead, they analyze, they question, they watch. Their minds are often sharp, nuanced, and philosophical. They may have a gift for pattern recognition, not just externally, but in their inner lives. They notice how things fit, where they break, and what no one else is seeing. But that power comes at a cost. Because they see so much, grey-eyed individuals may struggle with overthinking, emotional detachment, or existential doubt. They may become cold, aloof, or even cynical, guarding their own hearts because they've seen too many others misuse theirs. Jung described this kind of psyche as the one dominated by the thinker, but he warned, thinking alone cannot bring wholeness. It must be balanced with feeling, sensation, and intuition. The observer archetype is beautiful when it leads to wisdom, but dangerous when it becomes isolation. Grey-eyed people often carry a quiet pain, a sense that they were never meant to belong fully in any one place. Their task is to learn that objectivity doesn't require distance, and that presence can be both contemplative and warm. When they soften into their insight, when they share it rather than hoard it, they become powerful guides. They don't demand authority, they don't seek followers, but people follow anyway because true clarity is rare, and these souls often carry it in spades. Very dark or black eyes, the depth, the unseen, the keeper of shadows. Then there are the eyes so dark, it's difficult to tell where the pupil ends and the iris begins. These are often called black eyes, though no eye is truly black, only very dark brown, sometimes with blue or red undertones under bright light. But symbolically, the black eye represents depth, mystery, the void. And in Jungian terms, it aligns with the shadow itself, not as something evil, but as something unknown, powerful, untouched. People with very dark eyes often project a sense of intensity. Their gaze is felt before it is seen. There is something in them that feels ancient, quiet, even haunting. Others may describe them as private, intimidating, magnetic, or hard to read. That's because the dark-eyed soul often embodies the archetype of the witch, the mystery, the hidden power. This is not a role, they may not even be conscious of it, but they often stir reactions in others without trying. People project onto them fears, desires, judgments, and they feel it. Jung warned that when an individual becomes a container for the projections of others, they are at risk of being misunderstood, excluded, or idealized unfairly. The task is not to escape this role, but to integrate it, to understand why their energy evokes such strong reactions. The very dark-eyed individual is often emotionally intense, beneath their surface calm. They may feel deeply but express little. They may appear unbothered, but are absorbing everything. They are protectors of the deep unconscious, the unspoken, the ancestral, the primal. The danger lies in suppression, in holding too much, in never letting the light in. Their journey is to realize that depth is not darkness, that what is hidden is not evil, only unknown. And when they learn to bring their insight into the light, not with force, but with trust, they become something rare, a guardian of transformation. Not by burning brightly, but by being the vessel that holds others through fire. They are not meant to shine, they are meant to anchor. And in that anchoring, entire storms can settle. After all these colors and archetypes, one truth remains. The most powerful part of the eyes is not their shade, but their gaze. Because the gaze is active. It is the expression of the psyche moving outward, and that gaze carries history, pain, hope, curiosity, protection, desire, wisdom. It is not neutral. It is a mirror of everything you've been, everything you've denied, and everything you are trying to become. Carl Jung taught that the shadow, the unconscious material we repress, does not disappear just because we ignore it. In fact, it appears most often in the way we look at others, in the judgments we place on them, in the people we're drawn to, and the ones we reject without knowing why. So the next time you look into someone's eyes or into your own, ask, what part of me is looking? Is it fear, longing, control, compassion? Is it my wound or my wisdom? Because the eyes may be colored by biology, but the gaze is shaped by experience. And it is in the gaze that the soul reveals itself most clearly. By now we've seen that eye color is not just a biological accident. It can be a symbolic fingerprint, an energetic imprint, a reflection of archetypal forces moving through us. Blue, brown, green, hazel, grey, black, each carries with it not just pigment but meaning. And yet, even deeper than color is something far more revealing. The gaze. It is the gaze that brings these colors to life. It is the gaze that transmits intention, emotion, history. And it is through the gaze that we both reveal and conceal who we truly are. Carl Jung taught us that every human being is born with an unconscious mind, not just a personal unconscious, filled with forgotten memories and repressed emotions, but a deeper layer he called the collective unconscious. This is the domain of archetypes, those universal psychological patterns that live in every human soul, regardless of culture, time, or background. Archetypes are not stereotypes. They are energies, symbolic codes that shape how we move through life. And Jung believed that we are each born with a unique constellation of these archetypes. Some dominate, others hide. But all are present, waiting to be seen, expressed, or integrated. What makes the eyes such a powerful window into these forces is that they operate at the intersection of the seen and the unseen. They are visible organs, but they don't merely see, they also speak. They speak what words cannot say. They transmit feeling, memory, motive. The gaze is where soul meets world. And this is precisely where the work of individuation begins. Individuation, according to Jung, is the process by which a person becomes whole. It is the long, difficult, often painful journey of confronting all the parts of oneself, especially those that were rejected, denied, or pushed into shadow. It requires us to see through the personas we wear, the roles we perform, and the defenses we've built. It calls us to turn inward with honesty and ask, what part of me have I buried to survive? What emotion have I silenced to be accepted? What gift have I feared to express because it would make me stand out too much or not enough? And here's where the eyes return as symbolic tools. Because more than anything, it is the way we look at ourselves, at others, at the world, that reveals whether we are still asleep in the unconscious or awakening to our truth. A gaze that is filled with judgment, cynicism, or suspicion often mirrors an inner world at war with itself. A gaze that is soft, open, and steady often comes from someone who has made peace with their contradictions. You've met people like this before, even if you didn't know how to describe it. People whose eyes seem to hold something vast and quiet. People who don't need to speak much because their presence speaks for them. These are often souls who have walked through fire and returned, not burned but transformed. Their gaze is not empty, it is full, not of performance but of presence. And here lies one of Jung's greatest insights, that we can only see in others what we have first seen in ourselves. This is the principle of projection. When we encounter something in another person that triggers us, whether attraction, admiration, irritation, or hatred, we are often being shown a part of our own psyche. The gaze then becomes a mirror, not just of who the other is, but of what we are ready or not ready to face within. For example, someone with piercing eyes may provoke discomfort not because of something they are doing, but because their energy confronts our defenses. Someone with warm, earthy eyes may evoke longing because they remind us of a kind of emotional security we never fully received. Someone whose eyes shift color may stir confusion because they mirror our own internal ambivalence. In this way, the color and quality of the eyes become activation points, keys that unlock deeper layers of self-awareness. When we ask ourselves, what we feel when we are looked at by certain people, and what we feel when we look at them, we begin to enter symbolic territory. Jung would say that we are engaging with the unconscious in that moment. And if we stay with the discomfort rather than fleeing it, something begins to shift. This is why the spiritual traditions of the world have long emphasized eye contact in rituals, initiations, and meditations. In some cultures, the teacher or guru transmits wisdom not through words, but through the eyes. In others, gazing into a mirror is used as a way to meet the deeper self, or even to summon the hidden self. The practice of eye-gazing between two people in silence is known to dissolve social masks and evoke deep emotions, even tears, without a single word exchanged. Why? Because the gaze bypasses language. It speaks directly from soul to soul. It bypasses the ego and reaches the archetype. And when we understand this, something changes. We stop focusing so much on what others see when they look at us, and we start focusing on what is looking out from within us. Am I looking at the world through the eyes of my wounded child? Through the eyes of the abandoned lover? Through the eyes of the overcompensating perfectionist? Through the eyes of the anxious critic? Or through the eyes of the healed adult? The integrated being, the one who is no longer hiding from themselves? When we change the archetype behind our gaze, we change our lives. This is where Jung's notion of the wounded healer becomes especially relevant. The wounded healer is someone who has suffered, but rather than being destroyed by their pain, they use it to heal others. Their gaze carries empathy, not pity, strength, not hardness, compassion, not condescension. And many people with intense or unusual eyes carry this archetype. Others may comment on their eyes, not realizing that what they are sensing is the soul behind them, a soul that has walked through darkness and come out bearing light. But there is one more piece to this. The gaze is not just how we express ourselves, it is also how we choose to witness others. Do we see others as threats, objects, tools, competition, distractions? Or do we see them as souls, as mirrors, as stories in progress? Jung said that to truly see someone, we must let go of the projections we've placed on them. We must learn to hold them in symbolic space, recognizing that they too are shaped by forces both seen and unseen, that they too are living a myth, consciously or not. And when we do that, when we allow our gaze to become a vessel of understanding rather than judgment, we begin to participate in healing, not just our own, but that of others. The gaze becomes medicine. It becomes sacred. So as we reach this point in our journey, take a moment, reflect on how you look at the world, how you look at others, how you look at yourself. Is your gaze full of urgency, fear, or comparison? Or is it softening into curiosity, acceptance, and clarity? And you don't have to have the right eye color to carry wisdom. You don't need rare eyes to have a rare heart. The color may be symbolic, but the gaze is transformational, and the eyes are not what make you powerful. The consciousness behind them is. This is what Carl Jung would want us to remember, that behind every eye is a myth trying to unfold, a pattern trying to resolve itself, a shadow trying to be seen, not condemned, a light trying to return. You were given your eyes. Not just to see, but to understand. Not just to observe, but to awaken. And now that you know this, the question becomes, what will you choose to see next? You came into this world with a gaze that no one else carries. Not because of your eye color, but because of the soul behind it. And maybe, just maybe, that gaze has been quietly shaping every connection, every silence, every moment of awakening you've ever known. Carl Jung believed that when we become conscious of our patterns, we gain the freedom to change them. And now that you've looked more deeply into your own eyes, not just as organs of sight, but as symbols of being, you've already taken the first step. Because once the soul begins to see itself, it never stops. Your eyes don't just look at the world, they reveal the one who dares to witness it.